1933, Persepolis, Iran. Archaeologist Ernst Herzfeld is digging under the palace of Darius. His team uncovers crates of clay tablets, thousands of them. The script looks like Mesopotamian cuneiforms, but when scholars sound out the words, they don't fit Persian. They fall into pattern that matches Sanskrit, the language of the Vedas. What was Sanskrit doing inside a royal archive of Persia? A detail like this never made into the history books. These tablets would later be called Persepolis Fortification Archive. Over 20,000 pieces stored in the palace fortifications, written under the reign of Darius I. The entries are ordinary: rations for workers, wine for priests, feed for animals, records for travelers, supply routes, administrative notes. But when these tablets were sent to Chicago for study, the shock repeated. Again and again, the words lined up with Sanskrit. Not one accident, but a recurring pattern. And now the mystery deepens, because the moment you match these words with Persia's own inscriptions, a picture begins to emerge. The language of the Vedas sitting inside the system of the Achaemenid Empire. This wasn't a coincidence. It was built into the names of kings themselves. The names of Persia's rulers were not random. Cyrus in Old Persian was Kurus. Darius in Old Persian was Daravahu. Xerxes in Old Persian was Ksha Yarsha. Say them out loud. They sound almost like Sanskrit. Kuru, Dharavasu, Kshatriya. These are not coincidences. These are the same old roots that we see in the Vedas. But here's the question. How did Sanskrit, the language of India's sacred text, end up inside the royal house of Persia? The Achaemenid Empire was the greatest power of its time. Why are its kings carrying names that sound Vedic? This puzzle did not just strike modern writers. Even Ernst Herzfeld, the German archaeologist who first uncovered these tablets, began comparing Persian religion and Vedic tradition in his later studies. Other scholars like Mary Boyce and W.B. Henning noted the same thing, that the overlap between Persia's rituals and the Vedas were too close to be dismissed. And here is where the story turns, because the answer may not lie in the tablets at all, but in India's oldest records, the Vedas and the Puranas. They tell us of Rishi Kashyap, the great sage whose descendants spread across lands. One line linked to King Sagar's dynasty. It is said to have traveled west to settle in new lands, to carry Vedic rites beyond the Indus. Could this be the line that became Persia? This is not just a myth. Modern scholars have looked at the same trail. David Foley points out that Persian rituals, their fire altars, and their sacred drink mirror the Vedic yajna and som rites. Subhash Kak goes even further, arguing that early Persians were not foreigners to India, but offshoots of the same Vedic civilization. The language, the names, even the gods, there is a too much overlap to ignore. Persian kings were not strangers to India. They carried a Vedic memory in their own bloodline, and we see it in their stones. On the cliffs near Persepolis, Darius carved the Behistun Inscriptions, a royal message in 3 languages. Inside those lines, the roots of Sanskrit appear, again and louder than ever. The first line, Bhaga Vajraka Ahura Mazda. The great god is Ahura Mazda. The word Bhaga means Lord or giver. In Sanskrit, the same word Bhaga, the Lord who divides and dispense. The inscription goes on, Haya Imam Bhūmi Ada, Haya Avam Āsman Mada. Now, some of you have ever read or studied Sanskrit would think that this is a rare citation of a Sanskrit shloka. Avam, Bhūmi, Asmanam, Ada, all Sanskrit. This means who created this earth, who created the sky. When Darius boasts about ruling, he says, I rule by Arata. This is Sanskrit Rata, cosmic truth, the law of order. He calls human Mritya, mortal men. Sanskrit calls them Mritya. He warns against lies with Droga. Sanskrit uses Dhru or Droha. Every line gives the same pattern. Old Persian and Vedic Sanskrit are not two cousins drifting apart. They are two voices of the same parent tongue. And then the final line delivers the shock. Darius lists his land. Among them, Hindus, the Persian word for Indus, the same as Sanskrit Sindhu. India itself carved into Persian kings' foundational records. If this revelation shocked you, subscribe right now. And if this was something new for you, then kindly like the video. Because what comes next flips the gods themselves. You just saw how Sanskrit sits inside Persia's empire. Now here's the shock. In Persia, the very beings India called Devas were turned into demons. Zarathustra himself condemns the Devas, calling them false god. Even Indra is named as a demon. In Persia, the meaning stayed noble. Their supreme god is Ahura Mazda, the wise lord. For them, Asuras were sacred. But the flip happened with the Devas. In India, Devas meant shining gods, Indra, Agni. This wasn't theology alone. History has actually left fingerprints for us to understand that how Devas and Asuras turned against each other. Around 5018 BC, Darius I marched in east. The Achaemenid Empire annexed the west of Indus. From that moment, cousins became subjects. Shared gods became weapons. Each side cast the other's divine power as enemies. The split entered scriptures. The Avest demonized the Devas. The Puranas turned Asuras into foes. Yet, the memory of kinship never died. In Indian scriptures, Asuras are not always evil. Many are still close to Shiva. Some are blessed with boons. The old bond survived in fragments. So Persia and India once worshipped the same gods, split their pantheons into two halves, each keeping one and branding the other as dark. What started as one family of God became a war of brothers. So what do we see before the drift of 518 BC? We see the same system, not just in words, but in rituals, priests, and scriptures. Let's look at the rituals first. In Persia, priests crushed twigs of haoma mixed with milk and water and offered it into fire. In India, priests crushed stalks of soma, filtered it, and poured it into fire. Both plants were praised as gods, both called the drink path to immortality. The Avests say haoma drives death away. The Rig Veda says we have drunk soma and become immortal. Now the fire. Persians call it atra. Rig Veda calls it Agni. Both placed fire at the center of rituals. The Avest called fire the son of Ahura Mazda. The Rig Veda called Agni priest of the gods. Same rule, same cosmic order. The priest, the Avestians speak of Zautar, the one who invokes and offers. Rig Veda call him Hotar. Both words mean the same thing, the invoker. Persian fire priests were Atharvan. Vedic India had the Atharvan, the fire keepers of Atharved. Even the title of their priests come from the same root. Now the law. Persian religion stood on Asha, truth, order, righteousness. The Rigvedic order stood on Rata, the same idea of cosmic order. Both opposed in the same enemy, the lie. In the Old Persian, it was Droga. In Sanskrit, it was Dhruv. The gods. Avest worship Mitra, guardian of contracts, god of rising sun. The Rigved worships Mitra, same rule, same name. The Avest call on Apam Napat, the son of water. The Rigved does that too. Apam Napt, the Asura who made all creatures. Even Yama, the first man and the ruler of the dead, appear in Iran as Yama, the first king. This isn't my claim. Scholars both sides have said it. Mary Boyce admitted the Homa and Soma rites share basic singularities from a common origin. Subhash Kak argues the Avest preserved a Vedic character even after reforms. David Frawley calls both the part of the same religion. And it didn't stop with ritual or gods. The proof is carved into the names of the Persian kings themselves. We have already seen Darius, Xerxes, and Cyrus. But this doesn't stop here. Take Artaxerxes. In Old Persian, it was said, Arta-ciça Yarsha. It means he ruled in through truth. The Sanskrit has the same word, Rata, the law of cosmic order, the king who rules by Rata, Rata Kshatriya. This is straight out of Vedic philosophy. Go back to the dynasty's founders, Achaemenes. His old Persian name was Hakshamanus. Scholars translate it to having a friend in mind. In Sanskrit, this is Sakhamanas, friend in thought, a familiar compound straight from the Vedas. Then there is Cambyses, father of Cyrus the Great. His old Persian name was Khambujia, which lines up with Sanskrit Khambuja, born of Kambu. The Puranas mention Kambu as son of Rishi Kashyap, a Vedic clan memory inside the bloodline of Persia. Another key name is Vishvataspa, the king of Bactria who supported Zoroaster. His name Vistaspa literally means Lord of Horses. In Sanskrit, Vishvasva or Vishvastha carries the same meaning, the one of all horses. Horses were sacred in both the Vedic Yagna and Iranian Yagna. And it wasn't just names. Titles carried the same root. The Persian provincial governors were called satraps, from Old Persian, protector of the realm. And in Old Sanskrit, it is same, Kshatripa, guardian of dominion. Even the empire's identity was tied to Vedic political terms. The kings called themselves Arya. Some inscriptions add Arya-ciça, of Aryan lineage, the same as Sanskrit Arya and Aryavamsa. The very word Iran comes from Aryanum, land of the Aryans. Some of you might be asking, doesn't this prove Aryan invasion? That Persians brought these ideas into India? Well, let's stop here then, because the texts themselves say the opposite. And if you're still watching and haven't subscribed yet, hit the button right now. That's what keeps us motivated to dig deeper into these stories. And before we dive further into Persia, give this video a like. It's free and it helps us reach more curious minds. So, on the tombs of Naksha-Rustam, the Persian king wrote Arya or Arya-ciça, Arya of the Aryan lineage. The word Kika means seed, descendant, or bloodline. Just like if a man is Ram, his sons say that I am Ramka. The Persian weren't inventing an Aryan identity. They were claiming they were the descendants on it. Now the Avesta, the Persian scripture, the very first line doesn't point west. It actually creates west. Aryanam Vajehi, by the river Daitya. Aryanam, of the Aryans. Vajehi, expanse or extension. The Aryan expands by the river called Daitya. From there, the text starts creating the land we now call Central Asia. Sugda, Moru, Bakshti. If Ahur Mazda is creating Central Asia, how can Persians claim that they came from it? It means Central Asia was added later as an expansion of an older Aryan world. And the river's name is not random. Daitya in Sanskrit are the children of Diti, a clan name from India that shows up in Persia's sacred river. And to your surprise, Asuras and Daitya were of the same kin. The Rig Veda matches this timeline. It doesn't remember coming from the west. It remembers battles in Sub-Sindhu, the land of seven rivers, and tribes being pushed outwards. The Paktas, whose name still lives in Pashtuns. Gandhar, remembered both in the Vedas and in Persian Statpi list. Druyus, who went into Bactria. Every step points westward from India out, not from outside in. So now you might ask, what changed by 518 BC? Darius annexed the Hindus, which is Indus, Sindhu, carved into his inscriptions. At that moment, the bond twists. The same gods are still there, but their faces flip. In the Vedas, Asuras once meant mighty lord. Varuna himself is praised as an Asura. In Iran, Ahura stays noble, but Devas become demons. It wasn't language that split them. It was power and politics. Brothers became rival. But one clue seals the direction of this migration: the sound shift. Sanskrit kept sir and her. Old Persian turned sir into her. Soma became a haoma. Sapta became hapta. And Sindhu became Hindu. That's one parent language splitting into accents. It's not India borrowing later. And history remembers this trust. When the Iranians escaped Islamic conquest, they didn't run west. They came east to Gujarat. The Parsis live here even today, carrying their sacred fire. They came because the fire, the truth order, the priesthood, all of it was already familiar in India. But the trail doesn't end in Persia. Another branch of Kashyap's line, the Danavas, children of Danu, moved even further west. Their names survived in European rivers: Donabe, Don, Dniester. And in Ireland, they appear again as the Tuatha De Danann, the children of Danu. Persia wasn't a rival story. It was an extension of Aryan lineage. Arya-ciça, the Aryan seed. The West didn't describe Aryan arriving. It describes Aryan expanding, creating Central Asia. And beyond Persia, the road carries us all the way to Europe. The Persian kings called themselves Aryan seeds, not invaders but descendants. And Danu's children carried that seed to Europe. Well, like this video and subscribe for more. And click right here to see that how Celts actually have kept the Vedic memory alive. This is Harry signing off. Stay curious.